Good evening and welcome to City Council meeting for July 13th, 2021. From the attendance this evening, there must be something special going on, I guess. We do have two new council members, Sherry Jorgensen, Matt Fox. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with the relaxed guidelines. Those who have been fully vaccinated are not required to wear a mask while in attendance. The meeting may also be viewed online. Public comment may have been submitted via email prior to the meeting. And public comment during the meeting may be made in person as well. Items listed on the agenda may be taken out of order. Two or more agenda items for consideration may be combined. And any item on the agenda may be removed or related discussion may be delayed at any time. With that, I will call the meeting to order. We will begin with the invocation. Pastor Marvin Barbie, this will be your first time here. If you'd come to the podium, please. All rise.
Shall we bow our heads in prayer? Our Heavenly Father, thank you for the privilege that is ours to stand before this council and to pray for each and every one of them. We understand there's new members on the council, so we pray for unison as our city goes forward. We pray for wisdom and for guidance in all the decisions that need to be made. Thank you that we can approach you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, did we have any public announcements this evening?
No announcements.
Thank you. We will then move to the oath of office for Ms. Jorgensen and Mr. Fox, as well as Captain Nigel Walton with the Fire Department.
One here, and then there's one right next. And we're going to try to pick you up right here. You stand over here, there. Is that good, Holly? All right, and if you would just raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I state your name.
I, Sherry Jorgensen,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States
the Constitution and government of the United States
and the Constitution and government of the state of Nevada
and the Constitution and government of the state of Nevada
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
whether domestic or foreign,
whether domestic or foreign,
and that I will bear true faith,
and that I will bear true faith,
allegiance, and loyalty to the same,
allegiance, and loyalty to the same,
any ordinance, resolution, or law
any ordinance, resolution, or law
of any state notwithstanding,
of any state notwithstanding,
and that I will perform well
and that I will perform well
and faithfully all the duties
all the duties
of City Council
of City Council
of Boulder City, Nevada,
of Boulder City, Nevada,
on which I am about to enter,
on which I am about to enter.
so help me God,
So help me God,
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
under the pains and perjury of penalty.
Congratulations and welcome. Congratulations and welcome. You can stand up real quick here. And I need you both to sign these. Thank you.
Again, we want to say congratulations to council members Sherry Jorgensen and Matthew Fox. And we will now have the oath of office for Fire Captain Nigel Walton.
Nigel Walton is being promoted to captain today, and we're going to have his dad come up and pin him, and then we'll swear him in. All right, Nigel, raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
Nigel Walton,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States
that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and government of the State of Nevada,
and the Constitution of the State of
Constitution
Nevada,
and government of the State of Nevada,
Constitution and government of the State of Nevada,
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
whether domestic or foreign,
whether domestic or foreign,
and that I will bear true faith,
and that I will bear true faith,
allegiance, and loyalty to the same,
allegiance, and loyalty to the same,
any ordinance,
any ordinance,
resolution, or law
resolution, or law
of the state notwithstanding,
of the state notwithstanding,
and that I will perform well and faithfully
that I will perform well and that I will perform well and professionally, faithfully,
all the duties of fire captain
all the duties of fire captain
of Boulder City, Nevada,
of Boulder City, Nevada,
on which I am about to enter,
upon which I'm about to enter.
so help me God,
So help me God,
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Captain Walton. All right, we will proceed then to our first public comment period. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. Each person has up to 5 minutes to speak on a specific agenda item, and as always, we ask people to be civil and concise in their comments. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in public comment? All right, the phone line is available. Anyone wishing to call in for public comment, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Again, this is our initial public comment period. Anyone wishing to call in, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Madam City Clerk, were there any emails received for public comment?
No comments were received.
Thank you. Again, this is our initial public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak, the number is 702-589-9629. Hearing no one for public comment, we will close the public comment period and move to approval of the regular agenda. Madam City Clerk, any changes?
No changes.
Mr. City Manager
No changes.
and Ms. City Attorney.
No changes.
Council, any changes for the regular agenda?
No changes.
Anyone wishing to make a motion then for approval?
I would like to move to accept the regular agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we'll move to the consent agenda. Madam City Clerk, any changes for the consent agenda?
The only changes are a few minor edits to the minutes, and they're before you.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager
No changes.
and Madam City Attorney.
No changes.
Thank you. Council members, any changes for the consent agenda?
No changes.
All right, I'll move for approval of the consent agenda with the changes to the minutes that have been submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Agenda item number 5, introduction of bill number 1904.
I'd like to introduce Bill number 1904 with title, waive the reading.
Bill number 1904, an ordinance of the City of Boulder City approving agreement number 00-666A, a lease between the City of Boulder City and NCWPCS MPL 28 Years Site Town Holdings LLC to lease land for an existing cellular communications tower site located 2,200 feet north of the US 95 Interstate 11 interchange. Bill number 1904 will be considered at the August 10th, 2021 regular City Council meeting.
Thank you. Item number 6, strategic plan implementation plan update. Ms. LaPlante, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I am Lisa LaPlante, the Communications Manager for the City of Boulder City. Every quarter, I will update you on the city's strategic plan and its accompanying implementation action plan. The plan came about in 2018 with the help of Management Partners, an organization with more than 25 years in government consulting. The city issued 2 surveys, one for residents, one for employees. Staff engaged the public in 4 workshops. 2 council workshops were held to develop the strategic plan, and 1 staff workshop set forth the strategies to meet the goals. First of all, one of the tasks that the council members were given was to reaffirm the city's vision, mission, and core values. The vision statement is an aspirational statement of what the city leaders intend the city to be in the future, and it serves as the guiding principle for the services and programs the city provides. It is the City of Boulder City is committed to preserving its status as a small town with a small town charm, historical heritage, and unique identity, while proactively addressing our needs and enhancing our quality of life. Council also reaffirmed the mission statement, which is basically our purpose. The City of Boulder City's mission is to deliver outstanding services to enhance the quality of life within our community, our economic vitality, and the safety of those who reside, work in, visit, or travel through our community. And then our core values. These really establish the operating principles for the entire organization. They govern the actions and behaviors of city staff and policymakers. They are accessible, caring, and responsible customer service, fiscal responsibility, integrity, professional excellence, transparent communication, and openness to innovation and technology. As we moved forward, we set forth these 5 goals. They ended up with a number of strategies per goal. We're about at the halfway point of completing these goals, and I'm actually really happy to report that COVID didn't really set us back. We continued to move forward in spite of what could have been a very difficult time for a city. The 5 goals: achieve prudent financial stewardship, has 10 strategies. Invest in infrastructure has 5 strategies. Manage growth and development has 11 strategies. Promote historic preservation has 8 strategies. And sustain a high level of public safety services has 7 strategies. So let's start with that first goal, achieve prudent financial stewardship. Strategy 2 is diversify revenue sources through greater use of grants, self-sustaining funds, and leases. Council reviewed the RFP for Track 350 for residential infill and approved the RFP in June. That RFP opened on July 1, and on July 29th, interested parties will be able to participate in a site visit. The RFP closes September 16th. I should also note that Finance had stewardship of $4.2 million in CARES Act funds and reimbursement of over $1.2 million in COVID expenditures through FEMA. Strategy 7, evaluate the value of expenditures for outsourced services. Recently, we opened up bids for the golf course maintenance agreement. There were 8 bids received, and we did secure a golf course maintenance agreement with Turf Tech. Strategy 8, communicate and share financial successes with the community. A news release, social media posts, articles, and a utility mailer were all issued to celebrate that we had reached a fiscal year 2022 budget, as well as the reduction in rates for utilities. And if you haven't checked your utility bill, be sure to check it. It's in there. And then finally, strategy 10, hire and retain a high-quality staff. Evergreen Solutions started collecting data for a class and comp study to be done starting in June. They are scheduled to meet with City Council in August, and they will be discussing how they're moving along with those plans. That second goal, invest in infrastructure. Strategy 1 was the adoption of the fiscal year 2022 plan for the capital improvement plan. It was approved at the May 25th City Council meeting. Strategy 2, maximize the use of outside funding sources for infrastructure. This is actually an ongoing step for Public Works. You might note when you take a look at the report that some of the items are in green, but they say ongoing when they give a time schedule for those. We want to make sure that we continue to achieve those year after year. Public Works is working to secure annual maintenance funding along with special projects requests. Staff's currently working on annual funding requests with RTC. Strategy 4, inventory and prepare a life cycle cost analysis to guide the efficient replacement or rehabilitation of city assets or infrastructure. The Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund, which you guys all refer to as VERF, continues to support Strategy 4 by guiding equipment and vehicle replacement for the city. And Strategy 5, update the city's comprehensive asset management plan. This includes an assessment of current conditions. We have actually, as I mentioned, adjusted the utility rates as a result of this. The Utility Advisory Committee and City Council are doing budget forecasting to begin planning for fiscal year 23 already. And also golf cart replacement has also started to be taken on. We should be seeing that sometime in the next few months. The next strategy, next goal, manage growth and development. Strategy 5, identify and prioritize areas for residential infill development. City Council adopted a 2021 land management plan that focused on infill development. Strategy 7, multimodal development and connectivity. Public Works is securing annual maintenance funding for multimodal uses, including the bicycle path rehabilitations. Staff's preparing FY 2023 funding requests as well. Strategy 9, develop a plan to incorporate wayfinding and directional signage. City Council approved as part of the FY 2022 budget funding for a new Gateway community sign, as well as $75,000 for a wayfinding study. And finally, Strategy 10, promote the integration of city resources, including the airport, golf courses, railroad pass, Lake Mead, and other regional assets. Construction of Hemingway Park expansion nature trail has been completed. And also, as a side note, the Boulder Creek Golf Course recently hosted college golf championships. And so we're doing our best to bring in new visitors to Boulder City the best that we can and make sure that we're integrating those resources with our community partners. The next goal, promote historic preservation. Strategy 3, explore adding new historic preservation districts. The Historic District Preservation Plan makes recommendations on the creation and process for new historic districts. After final Historic Preservation Committee review, the draft plan will be presented to City Council, probably in the fall. Strategy 4, amend existing codes to achieve historic preservation goals. The Historic Preservation Ordinance Ad Hoc Committee has held several meetings since its creation in 2020. In May, staff prepared for 2 open houses held in early June to answer questions about the draft plan, and we continue to encourage people to read more on our website at www.bcnv.org/HP ordinance so that they understand the plan and what all it entails before it does come to you for a final vote. Strategy 5, identify financial incentives to promote historic preservation. As part of the FY22 budget, City Council approved $100,000 for a new grant program to incentivize homeowners to restore homes following the Secretary of Interior's design guidelines. And finally, Strategy 8, identify historic buildings to repurpose and reuse. City Council approved approximately $450,000 to conduct a study, apply for grant funding, and restore the historic water filtration plant. And the last goal, and probably the most important one in the last 18, 19 months, sustain a high level of public safety services. Strategy 2 is to ensure adequate staffing. Our fire department recently completed testing for a captain, Nigel Walton, who you had the pleasure of meeting earlier tonight. He will oversee the training for the department, and he will also be a fire analyst. This position will help the training and EMS programs move forward. The department is working on the community risk assessment, standard of cover, and future staffing needs. They will present these to City Council upon completion. In that same staffing issue, the police department recently promoted several employees to fill middle and upper level openings. Strategy 6, communicate and celebrate the low crime rate and other service excellence. The fire department has leveraged the data from the new record management system to better track and improve response time performance. From the time the person calls 911 until the fire department is on scene, it's a collaborative effort between the fire department and the police department communications center. Recently, we issued news releases on local control and mask updates on behalf of both the police department and fire department, making sure that we are communicating what service excellence we have been able to provide. And then finally, the courts. They celebrated recent graduates of their program, Breaking the Cycle, on social media. They shared images and stories, and they've made plans for summer gatherings with their graduates. So as I wrap up, I encourage everybody to check out the plan, as well as the implementation action plan updates. They are located at www.bcnv.org/strat plan. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Councilmember Adams?
Thank you. As always, thank you, Lisa, for the wonderful update.
Thank you.
And thank you to the rest of the staff for all the hard work that gets done. I mean, not only do they work so hard to make sure that the city is moving in a positive way, but it's doing so in a measurable way. And that's very important so that we can see the progress that the city is making. One of the questions, it's usually my go-to questions, it's always really great to see all the things that we are accomplishing. I guess this would maybe be for our acting city manager. Are there any issues that we foresee being problematic that we're seeing on the horizon that might start to slow down? It's good that we're halfway through this, we're halfway done. I know myself, when I'm cleaning the dishes, I always leave that big messy pot at the very end to deal with it. But do we see that anything that we foresee having issues with that we should be aware of?
Well, certainly as the community has moved forward with the implementation of the strategic plan, along the way there has been a couple of items identified and clarified. And so that's where the quarterly report helps to keep the council and the community informed on status. There's nothing that I'm aware of that would preclude further implementation of the strategic plan beyond what we've already reported out. And one of the great tools with the strategic plan is that it has timeframes for implementation. This helped to guide staff in what items to prioritize. And as you can see in the plan, certain action items need to be accomplished before others to be successful.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Bridges?
Yeah, I wanted a couple of things. First of all, something came up when we were having our training recently with PullPack about the vision and mission statement, and could they be declared offhand rather than, going back to some document. And maybe somewhere in our new design of our chambers, we can have the vision and mission statements up on the wall somewhere. I think that helps me in terms of making decisions that are consistent with the vision statement and mission statement of the city. Secondly, I do give a lot of credit to everyone to going backwards and saying, what is it that I do on a daily basis, and where does that fit into the strategies, and then back to the goals and back to the mission and the vision. And that's really important to me, and I give everybody, like Councilman Adams said, a lot of credit for that, and also your communication of it. That ties everything together. Everything we're doing up here, everything everybody's doing out there in the city, it ties it all together, and I think that's great, and I like seeing where we're going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Again, thank you for the presentation. I will also say that, in this time of COVID, to be able to look at the progress that everyone continues to make on this really has been amazing. We've been through a very difficult year and a half now, our fire and police, but it really shouldn't stop there. I mean, I know all of the employees in the city, whether it was taking appointments or organizing donations, whatever it was, everybody was pulling together for the best of the community. And that's difficult when people are concerned about their health, their family's health, all of that happening at the same time. We were held back a little bit by the county because apparently we did too good of a job in the initial vaccine rollout. That's not a bad problem. I mean, that certainly goes to what has happened. I look at the staffing levels that we've had. Other entities, other cities, they had to cut personnel, cut hours, cut wages, do all of that. We did freeze some positions, but I think overall it was very worthwhile to keep our employees in place, doing the work that was necessary, and certainly they all stepped up. And I think that's important for the community to know that that's a lot of what helped us get through all of this. You had mentioned earlier at the outset that we're about halfway through this. I recall that the previous strategic plan, when we started this one, had never been looked at really. It was done and then it was put on the shelf and sat there. While this one has a lot of similarities to that, the difference is staff has really made that commitment to work on this and get it implemented. Since we are halfway through and we also have 2 new members of the council, I would think sometime in the fall we may want to look at a workshop for the council to really go in depth on what the plan is, where we're at, and should any changes be made, because as you said, we are about halfway through a 5-year plan now. So thank you again for the presentation. I do encourage all the new members of the council, take a look at this. This is what we are telling the city staff is important to us. So if you see things that you think need to be corrected or changed, again, I think a workshop sometime in the fall would probably be a good idea. But thank you very much.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to item number 7 then, for possible action, city council appointments. We do have a number of them, so I think probably the easiest way to begin this is to ask if there are any existing appointments that someone does not wish to continue with. Councilmember Bridges?
Yes, so just the one we do not wish to continue with, I would say SNRPC.
Okay.
So you don't want would like to have.
Well, let's do it a piece at a time.
Okay, and previously, Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition was connected together with the Debt Management Commission, but those two really are not connected that I don't mind doing that. SNRPC has been, it's interesting, but I have not felt like I've been able to see it going forward at this point. I think that's consistent with most of the people on there. However, we are required to have a presence on there, and it is required to continue as an entity in the NRS. So, and it's tightly connected to the RTC. So, I mean, I would certainly do it if it's important for me to continue doing it, but.
Well, one thing as far as the RTC goes, what the RTC has done is to adopt the Southern Nevada Strong.
Right.
But that is not a substitute for what the original mission of the SNRPC had been. So I would just say that to say that, well, that has been folded in, it has not been.
Right, but I'm curious though, was the original idea for the SNRPC to be the municipal planning organization, the MPO, or I know that the RTC did become that.
Well, again, the RTC picked up some of the role of an MPO. Mm-hmm. It is designated as the MPO, but at least at this point, it does not serve the function, the overall function of an MPO. Mm-hmm. My understanding, I was on the SNRPC as well for 2 years. That had been established along with a similar body up north. The one up north has, blossomed into a significant regional organization, primarily for the Tahoe area. The one down here, there doesn't seem to be much appetite among the cities to continue with it, but since they did not approach the legislature, my understanding is that it will continue to exist for 2 more years.
Right, it will. I know that we have had meetings, and they will continue to have meetings as long as the advisory committee comes up with an agenda, and that the county has taken over for a while the staffing and budget matters for that, as opposed to having it rotate between the municipalities.
Do you know what their current schedule is for meetings?
When this doesn't, I don't mean this to sound sarcastic, but when they have one. I mean, there really has, it's been the fourth Tuesday of the month, and probably we've had every third, Acting City Manager Mays has attended. Would you say the third, am I correct on that it's been every third month?
Yeah, technically it's supposed to meet once a month, but
fourth Tuesday.
Usually in a 3-month period, 2 are canceled.
Yeah.
And as I had heard, there was going to be no request for funding from the cities.
For this fiscal year, there is no request for funding because there was a surplus from the prior fiscal year. Correct.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else? Okay, That then brings us to the appointments that are open. That would be the Community Education Advisory Board, the League of Cities alternate, Workforce Connections, the Audit Review Committee, and the Historic Preservation Ordinance Ad Hoc Committee. So, anyone have a desire for the Community Education Advisory Board?
I'm sorry, could I ask a question first? If I had an interest in serving on the RTC, would that have to have come from your desire to step down from the RTC?
Well, again, I've been serving on that for 2 years. I have no desire to leave the position.
Okay.
But that would be a vote of the council.
Okay.
So why don't we dispose of that question?
Okay.
All those in favor of having me continue as a board member? And one thing I do want to point out, that also includes the flood control district. Those two boards meet consecutively. So all those in favor of having me continue as the member for the Flood Control District and the Regional Transportation Commission, please raise your hand. All those in favor of having Member Bridges be the representative for those, please raise your hand. Okay, she will now be the member for the RTC and Regional Flood. Can we move on then to where I had headed before? Did you have additional questions, thoughts, comments, actions that you wanted to take?
No, sir, thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Would it be possible for us to go through each item? Like go through A, ask who's
Sure.
interested?
Why
and then
don't
move
we do
forward?
that? And
Okay, thank you.
again, I think one thing that I think we should point out here, as people get on these boards and commissions, they get to know staff, they get to know processes, they get to know all of that. So I would encourage all members of the council to give some consideration of, you know, what that takes and how much experience gets lost when we have these turnovers. But yes, let's go through these one at a time then and do it that way. We will begin with Mayor Pro Tem. Again, I will nominate Councilmember James Adams for Mayor Pro Tem. Any other nominations for Mayor Pro Tem?
I'd like to nominate Claudia Bridges.
Any other nominations for Mayor Pro Tem? All right. Madam City Clerk, do we need to go through the normal process on this of opening and closing nominations?
On this, you'll need to take a vote. Because
Oh, I understand taking a vote, but do we need to go through the process of making motions to open and close nominations?
as long as you ask if there are no more nominations, we can move on to the vote.
All right, thank you. All those in favor of Councilmember Adams continuing as Mayor Pro Tem, please raise your hand. All those in favor of Councilmember Bridges being Mayor Pro Tem? Councilmember Bridges is now Mayor Pro Tem. The Boulder City Community Education Advisory Board, anyone wishing to serve on that board?
I'd be interested in that.
Anyone else? Okay, again, by acclamation then, no votes needed. The Civilian Military Council. Again, rather than explaining any of that, is there anyone who has a desire to serve on that?
Mayor, if I might, that is a mayoral position unless
Well, I understand
you-
that, but, you know, I served on it as a council member. And again, I don't want to limit any of these council members from feeling that they can serve on these different boards and councils and commissions. Anyone wishing to serve on the Civilian Military Council? All right. That will then bring us to the Southern Nevada Health District Board. Councilmember Adams, you're currently the member on that. Do you wish to continue?
Yes, absolutely. I have, over the last 2 years, I have become much more comfortable and confident in my role on that board. There is a lot to know. I have developed relations with those and staff, and I would very much like to continue in my role on that board.
Anyone else wishing to serve on the Health District Board? Again, by acclamation then, Councilmember Adams will continue with that. The next is the Nevada League of Cities Board of Directors. Councilmember Adams is also the current member of that. Anyone else wishing to be in that position?
I'd be interested in that.
Okay, anyone else?
I would like to retain that seat as well.
All right. All those in favor then of Councilmember Jorgensen serving in that role, please raise your hand. That's a majority. Councilmember Jorgensen will now be the representative for the Nevada League of Cities.
Mayor, on the previous one, you need to nominate somebody to serve in the role of the advisory board on the Southern Nevada Health District, and it does have to be a resident. Paul Klaus has served that since January 2020 and would like to continue his role if you'll have him.
And I believe that is the only name that has been submitted, or are there any other names for the citizen representative on the Health District Board? All right, again, with Mr. Klaus then being the only name offered, he will continue in that position. Next is the League of Cities alternate, also the Legislative Committee. That position is currently open. Is there anyone wishing to serve in that position?
Mayor, having been on the board, I wouldn't mind serving as the alternate.
Anyone else interested in that position?
I am also interested.
Okay, anyone else? All those in favor of Councilmember Adams being the alternate and the Legislative Committee representative, raise your hand. All those in favor of Member Fox serving in that position? Councilmember Fox will serve in that position. Next is the Nevada Pool Pact. Councilmember Bridges is currently in that position. Councilmember Bridges, do you wish to continue?
No, thank you. I would be more than happy to allow or turn it over to somebody else interested. It pretty much consists of one meeting a year, but it's very interesting in terms of the budgeting and the insurance company that covers our city and other small municipalities.
Anyone wishing to serve on the board of the Pool Pact? We will have no representative for Pool Pact.
I would be happy to.
Oh, I'm sorry. By acclamation then, Councilmember Jorgensen. We've already covered the regional transportation and regional flood. The Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition, Councilmember Bridges has advised she does not wish to continue on that. Is there anyone wishing to serve on that coalition board? Perhaps somebody will consider that later on then. The Clark County Debt Management Commission, that member is currently Councilmember Bridges. Councilmember Bridges, do you wish to continue on that board?
Sure, yes.
Anyone else wishing to be on the Debt Management Commission board? Okay, by acclamation, it will be Councilmember Bridges. The Southern Nevada Water Authority, currently Councilmember Bridges is the board member for that. Do you wish to continue with that position?
You know, I'm going to make a statement here, which I would very much like to stay on the Southern Nevada Water Authority board because I think it's really important and we're dealing with a critical situation in terms of the water in the valley. However, I've had a lot of conversations and I would like to see, and Councilman Adams might be interested, somebody else to get that in-your-face presentation of exactly what's going on in our water system today. Valley-wide, in terms of the lake, in terms of the river, we've hit some critical numbers, and as much as I love going to those meetings and talking about this stuff with people, I really think it's important to have somebody else on council who also has the opportunity to see what's going on here.
I would be happy to serve on the Southern Nevada Water Authority.
Is there any other council members that wish to be considered for the Southern Nevada Water Authority?
I am interested.
Anyone else? All those in favor of Councilmember Adams serving on the Southern Nevada Water Authority, please raise your hand. Okay, that's a majority. So that position will now be held by Councilmember Adams. Next is Workforce Connections. That position is open. Is there anyone wishing to serve on the Board of Workforce Connections?
I would.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, no one else. By acclamation then, it will be Councilmember Fox. The Audit Review Committee, there are 2 council positions for that. Both are open. Anyone wishing to serve on the Audit Review Committee?
I'd be happy to do that.
Anyone else wishing to serve on the Audit Review Committee? Well, there are 2 positions. Again, I'm not here to direct or do any of that. I'm assuming because of actions that have already occurred that people have placed a great deal of thought into these positions. So there are 2 positions open. Councilmember Bridges has indicated her interest. Is there anyone else?
I'll just say that I don't know that my skill set is necessarily apt to the Audit Review Committee.
So I guess that's, you're not interested.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone who is interested in the Audit Review Committee?
I'd be happy to do it. I'd be happy to do it.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, as there are 2 positions then, and 2 people have indicated interest, that will be Councilmembers Bridges and Councilmember Jorgensen. Next is the Historic Preservation Ordinance Ad Hoc Committee. Again, there are 2 council positions also. I hold one of those currently. I'm interested in continuing. Is there anyone else interested in the Preservation Ordinance Ad Hoc Committee?
Mayor, I would be interested in serving on that committee.
I would also be interested.
Anyone else? All right, we'll start with myself then. All those in favor of having me continue on that committee, please raise your hand. I guess we don't need a further vote then. We have 2 others. Okay, then it will be members Adams and Jorgensen will be the members for the Ad Hoc Ordinance Committee. And I believe that's all of the positions. Any other comments or questions that any other council members wish to make? All right, we'll move to item number 8, presentation of City Attorney's Annual Report. Madam City Attorney.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council members. Brittany Walker here, your City Attorney, presenting my department's annual report. This annual report will go over the structure, function, as well as provide an overview of data and accomplishments from my office for your review, and if there's questions at the end. I'll begin with a brief overview of the structure of the office. So the office consists of myself, a paralegal, and a contract assistant city attorney who assists the city in prosecuting our misdemeanor violations of our ordinances. The official duties of the office are prescribed by Section 15 of the Boulder City Charter. Under this section, the city attorney is charged with acting as the legal advisor to the city council and other city officers, with drafting and reviewing all contracts and other legal documents, with prosecuting all violations of city ordinances. I will briefly go over each of these functions and some of the data and information from each, beginning with criminal prosecution. Again, as I explained, our prosecution is, we have an assistant city attorney, Mr. Gary Booker, who's contracted by the city to provide the prosecution services for violations of our ordinances that are misdemeanor level. Misdemeanors are punishable by up to 6 months in jail or a $1,000 fine. Our office has the philosophy that the goal is here to try to fix the problem rather than simply seeking convictions. One of the ways we do that is through our Breaking the Cycle Recovery Court program, which I will go over in a little bit. I thought it would be helpful to do a quick overview of the criminal procedure process so that the mayor and council had an understanding of essentially the flow of the criminal process. It begins with the arrest. Once an arrest is made, a police report is then faxed to my office, and we review it to determine whether it's appropriate to file a criminal complaint, whether there's enough evidence to support the charges, etc. So once we make that evaluation, we then make a charging decision and decide whether to file the criminal complaint. Once we file the criminal complaint, the defendant is then arraigned on the charges. The arraignment is where the defendant can plead guilty or not guilty. If the defendant pleads guilty, then sentencing takes place by the judge typically. If the defendant is not guilty, then we set it for what's called a pretrial conference, and that's where our office will meet with the defendant and perhaps his counsel and discuss the charges, whether the charges can be reduced in exchange for a plea of guilty, that sort of thing. If the agreement can't be made and the individual wishes to still contest the charges, or if we believe that prosecution and a trial is necessary, then a trial would go forward. So this is just a brief overview of the data from my office on how many criminal complaints we've filed since the beginning of the fiscal year. As you can see, there's been 300. We also have traffic tickets in our jurisdiction. Those are negotiated, and we have 450 of those are traffic negotiations. We have prepped for 18 trials. Trials may or may not go forward. We have 6 coming up this year. Sometimes at the beginning of trial, the defendant decides to plead guilty or something like that, and so the trial may not go forward. But we've prepped for 18 this fiscal year, and then we've had 345 pre-trial conferences. Again, one of our alternative sentencing approaches is Breaking the Cycle Recovery Court. This is really a collaborative effort between the court clerks, the marshals, local treatment providers, the police department, and our office's role is to review when individuals get charged with drug crimes like possession, things like that. We review the charges, we review the person's criminal history, we review the person's background to determine whether they're a good candidate for the program. The program is voluntary, so we want to make sure that the individuals are going to be successful, and so we look for candidates that we think are going to find success in the program, which is a voluntary, again, 15 to 24-month program, during which a sentence is suspended So if they complete the program, which includes drug and alcohol assessments, counseling, outpatient treatment services, recovery support groups, employment training, shelter assistance, life skills training. We also monitor and drug test while they're in the program. If they're successful in this program, then the charges are forgiven, which is a big deal, and it really helps a lot of people. We've had 9 graduates last year, so that was a really large success for the program. And that concludes the criminal portion. The civil side of the office, the large part of the responsibilities is contract drafting and review. As you see before you on many of the agendas, all of the public works contracts, purchasing contracts, when the city enters into agreements for services, when we employ design professionals, those are all contract agreements that are reviewed by my office to ensure that the city is well protected. We have city forms that we use to make sure that the city's in the best position possible for most of these, but some of them, the vendors will provide us their forms, and so I'll review it to make sure that all the key terms are there, that it adequately reflects what should be there for a contract with the municipality, things like that. Overall, I've reviewed 103 contracts to date. And that includes also requests for proposals as well. Another part of my office's role in advising the city is providing legal research and advice. Of course, the city is my client as your city attorney, but I'm as also charged with being legal counsel to the council members, and so my job is to provide you with legal advice should you have various questions involving your official duties, and I can provide you with individual counseling. I can also provide city attorney opinions. These are when issues of laws arise that on matters coming before you that are very complex and may implicate various legal issues. It's important to take the time to analyze the issue in a written opinion so that the council can feel informed on the decision that they're making. A good example, when I assumed this role, is we had an RDA grant application for a religious organization, and there are specific provisions and within our federal and state constitutions on government funding for religious organizations. So I provided an opinion and researched whether the limits on government funding for these religious organizations and when it's appropriate, when it's not, and provided that opinion to the council so that the council could make an informed decision. Another large duty of my office is the ordinance drafting and review. Since I've assumed this role, I've reviewed or drafted 16 ordinances. We also have several ordinances in progress. Typically, staff will draft the first version of the text amendment and then send it to me for my review to make sure that the ordinance is consistent across the rest of the city code, to ensure that it complies with the state constitution and the federal constitutional limits on local governments, what we can and can't do, and also make sure that it is clearly worded and drafted well so that it is easy to interpret by the public and also easy when courts are able to enforce it, that it has that effect. And so what I've found since I assumed this role is many of our ordinances are out of date and are vague and need updating. So part of the large long-term project is to update many of our ordinances to make them more clear so that the public is more aware of really what the rights and responsibilities are of them, as well as bringing our ordinances up to date with current statute and case law. Modernization. When I assumed this role, I modernized this office in several respects, and I think the biggest way is I subscribed to Westlaw when I first assumed this role. The office did not use any online legal research tools, and this is really a necessary thing for the legal profession in 2021. These online legal databases have statutes from all 50 states, case law, the most up-to-date case law. So this subscription enables my office to review the most up-to-date law, to do research and research various issues of law and see what other states are doing and how other states have approached things. So this has been really helpful and necessary for this office and for the city. I also adopted a new, more robust professional services contract. The original contract was only 7 pages, and so it was lacking in several key terms and also provisions that govern when disputes arise. It's important to have very well-drafted contracts so that when disputes arise, the contract speaks to that scenario and can help guide the parties so that things don't end up in litigation. And so I implemented a new professional services agreement, and we are in the process of implementing a new service provider agreement that will be similar. It's modeled off of other municipalities. And again, I'll be updating our ordinances. And then finally, legal claims and services. I'm essentially inside counsel for the city, and we have, when legal claims arise, we also have an insurance policy with Pool Pact, and when there's claims that arise, Pool Pact will often retain outside counsel on our behalf to represent the city in various actions, such as a personal injury action. If a city employee is involved in a car accident and that individual lawsuit results, then we would inform Pool Pact of it, and they would appoint outside counsel. As an example, I've also included a summary of claims that's required to be filed by my office pursuant to NRS 41.0385. This summary sheet summarizes, as of January 28th, 2021, all of the tort claims that were alleged against the city and whether the status of those claims. As an example, Pool Pact retains those attorneys for the most part to represent us, and I, as inside counsel, help to guide those attorneys. So I monitor the case, I ensure that I see where it's headed. I advise on legal strategy to these attorneys and make sure that they're well representing the city, review their pleadings. If they draft motions, if they draft various legal documents, I review those and provide input with all of our outside counsel. We also have the risk management fund in the event we have a lawsuit that the Pool Pact doesn't, that our policy doesn't necessarily cover, and the city has to spend money for legal services. We also have a risk management fund that assists with that. And next, I'd like to just go over some of the legislation that's affecting my office. I'll be providing a more detailed, in-depth report on the 81st legislative session later this year. Staff is currently reviewing all of the bills that passed to assess their impact to the city and explain how it might change city processes or change things in the future. So they're helping me compile that, and we'll deliver that report later. But I did want to briefly touch on these two bills that do affect my office. The first is Assembly Bill 116. This bill decriminalizes traffic violations. So minor traffic violations like speeding under 30 miles per hour, talking on a cell phone, things like that will no longer be criminal misdemeanors. They will be civil infractions. And this will change significantly how all cities address these types of violations. And we'll have to institute a new process to ensure that these drivers are held accountable for breaking the law and are paying their civil fines. And so I'll be meeting with the court, and we'll be determining the best way to go about that. I'll also be updating our ordinances to, we'll have to remove those criminal misdemeanor penalties from our ordinances as well. So we'll have to update those as well, because the bill is effective January 1st, 2023. So that will be, my office will be working on that. Assembly Bill 424. This requires a pretrial release hearing within 48 hours after a person's taken into custody. So if we have an individual who's arrested on a Friday or on a weekend, the law now requires us to provide them with a hearing within 48 hours. And of course, all attorneys and court staff have to be available for that. This will impact the court probably more than myself. My office will probably be able to absorb this cost, but it will be an additional responsibility following this legislative session. And with that, that concludes my annual report. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Well, I would say, Madam City Attorney, I appreciate the report very much. I know that you, between the time you were acting city attorney and now, it's been, 8 months, 10 months now. I think you've done a very good job of getting things organized, keeping the council informed, which is a critical part of the city attorney's job, and providing very sound legal advice to us. So I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 9, public comment. Our last public comment period. Public comment during this portion of the meeting may be on any issue. Speakers will have up to 5 minutes to speak. And as always, we ask people to be civil and concise in their comments. Is there anyone in council chambers that would like to speak?
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council. My name is Cindy Swanson. I live at 535 Birch with my family. We moved here nearly a year ago, and what I have to say is in no way indicative of how I feel about this community. We're very happy to be here. We feel like this is a resting spot, and we really enjoy being in Boulder City. As you can tell, I'm blind. I've been in the disability world advocating for the last 30 years in Washington, D.C., different places, and feel very comfortable with my knowledge of disability issues. And I understand that there are 2 things that are coming this way to the city. One of them is, I understand, a review of the City Hall and its accessibility. And a lot of money is being put into redoing things to make it accessible. And I also understand that the RTC is planning or is going to do a walkability study of Boulder City. Now, some of you might be aware of a item called independent living. And the independent living movement is what pivoted our country to create the Americans with Disabilities Act. And the philosophy of independent living is nothing about me without me. So when somebody says, let's do this for the person who has a disability, let's talk to the person with the disability about it first to find out if that really works, right? It makes sense. It's like anything. Let's talk to the people who are going to use it. So with humility and grace, I ask you all, and I've talked with some of you about this, to consider very, very seriously the issue of bringing in people with disabilities before we spend a lot of energy doing some great things to this wonderful building, to our community, the walkability, whatever, and call on those people who do have the experience of having to cross streets that are not accessible, to use toilets that are not accessible, all those kinds of things. And in closing, I'd like to say thank you all for your service. She's tired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in chambers that would like to speak during public comment? All right, we will open the phone line then. Anyone wishing to make public comment for our final public comment period, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Again, this is our final public comment period. Anyone wishing to call in, the phone number is 702-589-9629.
Go ahead.
And I just want to say I agree 100% with what Cindy said. I do not know her, but it is something I agree 100% as somebody that is disabled to an extent. The walkability thing that you guys did, I think it would have been good if you would have included some of us that have mobility issues in deciding it, and the same goes with the revamping of the council chambers. The other thing I'd like to comment on is I'm rather disappointed that that council members didn't stand up and volunteer for all the positions that were available. I hate to see Boulder City not being informed on what's going on because we don't have somebody on the various committees. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. The phone line is available for final public comment. The phone number is 702-589-9629. Madam City Clerk, were there any written comments submitted?
No comments were received.
Thank you. Again, this is our final public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak, the phone number is 702-589-9629.
Public comment.
Yes, this is Tammy Burns, 1405 Highland Drive. Did I hear it correctly that nobody volunteered for the military board?
No, ma'am. That is generally served by the mayors of each city, and I will continue in that position.
Okay, thank you. As a veteran, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet. Again, anyone wishing to speak in the final public comment period, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Hearing no others for the final public comment period, we'll close the comment period and move to our last item on the agenda, City Council reports. We'll begin with Councilmember Adams.
Thank you. I don't have much in the way to report, but would like to inform. Oh, pretty loud here. I would like to inform everybody that I will be absent for most of the month of August. I will be traveling with my wife and her father to repatriate the remains of her mother, Natasha Mincheva, to Bulgaria. So I will not be present at least the very first meeting in August. With that, though, that means I will not be here when our new city manager comes on board. So I would like to thank Michael Mays for all the hard work that you have done in your acting role. It absolutely has been integral and paramount to this transition period, and we are better off for having you in this position, absolutely. So thank you.
Councilmember Fox. Councilmember Jorgensen.
I would just like to say how thankful I am to be able to be here tonight and to be able to be part of the council that's serving Boulder City. And I look forward to working with you as a council and serving the city of Boulder City.
Thank you. Councilmember Bridges.
Is this working? Okay. Yeah, I wanted to thank Michael Mays for his hard work, because I believe our next council meeting will be with the new city manager. And I too wanted to thank you for all your hard work. This has been an interesting and challenging year for everybody, and in lots of ways. And I think you've stepped up well, and city attorney and acting city clerk and two new council people all at the same time. So you're all doing a wonderful, wonderful job. And I also wanted to be my own broken record again, for as I do every council meeting, and let people know that if you are dealing with an emergency, whether it's COVID related or economic in some way, emergency aid is there to help with helping with paying rent, mortgage, utility bills. We have a well-stocked pantry. People in Boulder City shouldn't have to worry about being evicted for financial reasons or go hungry. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to point out the couple of emails received today regarding work that our federal congressional delegation is doing, specifically Susie Lee. She recently had a community funding project for Boulder City of $1 million grant for work at our wastewater treatment plant. There was some other information that came out. Getting us through this pandemic, Congress has provided critical funding all through this, whether it's been the CARES Act, now the American Rescue Plan, the Jobs Plan. These have really been extremely helpful. Councilmember Bridges just mentioned the work that Emergency Aid has done, the CARES Act funding. We were able to provide 2 emergency aid, was critical for many people in this city who suffered greatly because of COVID-19. And with regard to COVID-19, unfortunately, we're seeing once again hospitalization rates and fatalities going up here in the state of Nevada. The strain apparently that's become dominant here is more transmissible, seems to affect younger people more directly. Within the state, 99% of those people who are dying as a result of this have not been immunized. We have a solution: get vaccinated. It's that simple. During a meeting this morning for the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, one of the decisions that was made by that board was to award a $500 million contract to R&R Partners, who's been the advertising agency for many years. They're the ones who came up with the, it only happens in Vegas. When we put that type of tax money towards an effort, we can't overcome not saying that Vegas is a safe place to come to. So, the Convention and Visitors Authority has put a great deal of effort into providing facilities, doing advertising, getting the word out. We want Las Vegas to be safe, not only for the people who live here, but also for the visitors who come here. Clark County depends on the tourism business, and one way to do that, again, please, if you're still hesitant about the vaccine, get some facts, talk to your health provider. We've got to get this behind us before it continues to catch up with us each time we let our guard down. With regard to the 4th of July, it was hot as usual, but it was a lot of fun. Thanks again to everyone who helped get that going. We certainly look forward to our events here in Boulder City, and that's one of my all-time favorites is the 4th of July. So thanks to everyone who made that a success. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.